an LSAT last February, and I don't know what, I was doing like 154, 155 or so going into it. And so I didn't feel terribly strong about it, but I just wanted to get in. And then when I wrote it, I came out with like a 140. Like I totally bombed it. But there was a lot going on, and I was up in Canada. So I took a pre-law program. I don't need a pre-law program, but it got me moved into Texas. I want either into the University of Texas, which is a top university, really. They need like a 170, or into Baylor, which is like a 160, something like that. And I know I can do that. I know I'm capable of it. Like I have multiple degrees. I just have to get my head around what's happening. Like I'm a teacher, moving from being a teacher, moving to law. It's my second career now that my children are leaving. So, and I survived a 12-year divorce. So, it just felt like the right space to move into. So now I'm focused. Like I'm in a law internship. I'm at Southwestern University doing a law internship for 20 hours a week. Writing a research paper for education is my other credit. So I'm kind of set, and I want to write in June, and I want to nail it. Like I want a 170 or better. And I need a plan to do that. And I've bought all the books, and I've kind of watched some videos, and I've started to work through your course, but I'm looking for a pretty big jump. And I know that it's a situation of like my learning and that threshold of, stepping into figuring out. I felt like before I was starting to find those little blocks that would click together to make sense. But having stepped away from studying for the LSAT now for a while, as when I reopened it, I was like, okay, this is so that's my story.
I hear you. Well, thanks for sharing the background. I'd love to do whatever I can to help you get that top score. A couple of questions. One is, what's your target LSAT date right now?
I was thinking June. Is that far enough out?
No, that's plenty of time. That's great.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Baylor has a program that starts in January. So if my score was good enough in June, I could potentially start with them at the January start next year. Otherwise, it would be an application for the following September to U of T.
Okay, sure. Well, that's plenty of time between now and June. We're speaking now very end of January, beginning of February. Gives you a solid 4 months and change from now, also considering the familiarity you have up to this point. Yeah. Are there any particular weak areas or areas that you've struggled with on the LSAT so far?
Timing. I think if I had all the time in the world, I'd be fine.
Sure. I mean, you get faster by understanding the material better.
I also think I struggle a little bit with staying focused, the endurance of staying focused that long. Mm-hmm. And like staying, I think I'm a marathon runner. So I feel like I need to build up my endurance. I feel like in short parts, when I come and study in short parts, I do better. And then I tend to lose my capacity as we move through.
Sure. So you already know the solution there, at least in part, which is built up gradually, right? You built it up over time. You don't go from 0 to 26 overnight. It's you do a number of longer runs, and they get progressively longer with adequate breaks in between so you don't burn out. Yeah. So just as you might want to do an 18-mile run or a 20-mile run before the full 26, you want to do some 2-section exams, 3-section exams. And then unlike a marathon, you can actually do several full-length exams before test day, and it won't burn you out as long as you space them out adequately. So I'd say first, get your pacing down with an individual timed section, then 2 timed sections back to back, then 2 sections break a third, then 2 sections break 2 more. And that's how you work on both pacing and endurance simultaneously.
So would you break it down and do like logical games and then do reading comprehension? Like how would you master one section? I think what I'm working with too is changing the way I'm thinking for this exam. I've been writing papers and I've been teaching inquiry-based learning, and I'm not thinking in the right way for this exam, I feel like. Does that make any sort of sense? My mind's on more of a writing inquiry-based research kind of mode, and it needs to switch back to the analyst thinking piece of it.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. They're fundamentally different. They are. And part of this is that the LSAT is requiring that you analyze other people's work, but they're very, for example, logical reasoning, very short, bite-sized arguments. Pattern recognition is a really big part of this because they just keep repeating themselves. If you're reading academic papers, different authors have completely different writing styles. They're all over the place. LSAT is standardized.
Right.
And it's also strictly timed.
And I'm used to being able to talk you into understanding my argument or my perspective, right? And I can sell you in an interview on what my knowledge is. But when you put me into a standardized test like the LSAT, that's not usually my strong space. And so I know I need to master that as I go back towards an academic environment that requires that of me. And so it's figuring out how do I move back into that more. And I think, so if I master logical game, like what's the secret to getting a 170? You've got to make this part perfect. And like, how do I do this?
Yeah, sure. So there's a fundamental difference that you highlighted, which is that you're not selling them anything. If anything, you need to adopt their way of thinking. Mm-hmm. So they hold all the keys. You've got to be able to tell them what they want to hear. And part of that,
Patriarchy wrote us an exam that says you're only allowed in if you overthink like that. So now that may well be true. That may well be true. However, they're the ones who hold all the cards. So we have to adopt their way of thinking and be able to tell them that we understand how they're going about it, how they're thinking. So they're always right. LSAC is always right. You can't argue with them. Doesn't matter if you can make a case for the wrong answer choice. In very, 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 very rare cases, they have been wrong and they've admitted it. But 99.9% of the time, they're right. And we have to come around to their way of thinking. And part of that, how you do that, is pattern recognition. So if you've seen them make a certain style of argument again and again and again, and you understand why the argument is laid out the way that it is, and you understand it's flawed if they say it's flawed, or it's valid if they say it's valid, and then you can recognize that same style of argument on a future question, even if the surface level topic is different. Right.
So the key to that 170 is adopting their way of thinking and having been down the various roads of argumentation enough times so that nothing is new on test day. You've seen it all before.
So what does that look like between now and June? What do I have to do?
So it's about, you have plenty of time.
I need a checklist.
I do actually. Okay. And so it's about having a basic familiarity with the different sections and the different question types. So logic games, you have ordering games, grouping games, combinations of those, pattern, curveball, logical reasoning, strengthen, weaken, necessary assumption, must be true, and so on. Okay. And then reading comp, same deal. And then once you understand them individually, you then know how to put them all together with individual sections, full-length exams, reviewing in depth. And I actually have, at the very beginning of the course, I have a detailed day-by-day study plan breaking down exactly what to do every single day over the course of your prep between now and test day. So you just follow that checklist, follow that study plan, and you'll get there.
Okay. So then do you recommend just following the course as it is online, or do you think that tutoring in addition to that, or what, how do you evaluate that? Do I do a test now? Like, I feel like there's no purpose in doing a test at this moment before I've done some studying, because I know where I'm going to fall.
That's exactly how I feel. Yeah. Diagnostics, when you haven't touched it before, haven't touched it much, they're just going to be discouraging because they'll tell you, hey, you don't know it yet.
Well, like, and even if it popped up great, I'd be like, well, that was a miracle fall because it's not consistent, right? Like,
sure. You got to train and build up to it. If you were to run a marathon having run nothing at all, first, you just wouldn't be able to. The body would not comply with that, right?
Exactly.
So you've got to know how each section of the exam works individually before you pull it all together. Mm-hmm. And so the study plan is the best way to go. Yes, of course, tutoring can help, coaching can help. There are plenty of benefits to a one-on-one personalized approach. And we can talk a bit about that down the line. But I always recommend that you do some work on your end first to figure out, okay, which parts are you feeling okay on? Which parts are you totally lost on? And once you hit a roadblock or an obstacle, then you reach out and we can talk about getting you unstuck in that particular area. But I'm looking for you to at least do a little bit on your own first.
Okay. So I have your course, like I bought the beginning, I believe, of it. So just continue to work at that until I got through it a little bit. And then when I start to have like blocks, then reach out to schedule more tutoring one-on-one, or how was that what you,
that's typically what I'd recommend. So for example, you might find that ordering games are super easy and smooth for you. Groupings where it gets a little bit more complicated. And so at that point, I'd say reach out about the one-on-one, or if you don't have the top tier course package, you can always upgrade later, in which case you'll get access to the live online classes in a group setting as well, which a lot of people like.
I think I took the first one just thinking I would get into it, get warmed up and started, and then I would eventually upgrade to it. Because I know I had shopped around a little bit to see kind of what would give me a little bit more structure, because I have a bit of a busy life and I tend to put things off if I don't have a bit of a structure in front of me. How many hours a week?
I typically recommend at least 10 to 15 hours per week to keep moving forward, to keep the momentum going. And you can allocate that how you'd like. Some people are got to get more done on the weekends and can do less during the week. If you're only doing 1 hour a week or 2 hours a week, you're not going to make the progress that you need between now and June. So I recommend at least 10, 15.
Okay. And did you get any additional books? Like, I mean, I have all these LSAT books floating around with old tests in them. And then I have like as much as I absolutely detest the concept of any book called for dummies, I bought the LSAT for dummies.
Okay. I would throw that one away. I wouldn't recommend it. And part of it's just that it contains mistakes. That's the worst thing. It's bad enough. The LSAT's hard enough as it is, let alone if the questions themselves are actually flawed in their design. That book is not realistic. It's not up to date. I would put that aside. You want 170 plus, get some better materials. You have the course. The old exams are great, that you can do them in books, but I'd recommend as test day gets closer that you get LSAC's Law Hub so you can do the exam questions. Okay, perfect. So that I would use that instead of the books ideally, because that shows you the exact look and feel that you'll experience on test day.
Okay. Is there anything else I need to know?
I would just dive in, just take it one piece at a time. The study plan lays it all out. Of course, if you have questions as you move forward, which I'm sure you will, as everyone does, just reach out and I'll do what I can to point you in the right direction.
So we're just following the course, and then we're going through and doing old exams, kind of seeing how they go and comparing our answers to the answers that are there.
And use the course. I mean, the course gives you in-depth explanations. It gives you walkthroughs. And so the LSAT exams just give you the answer key, but they don't explain why. And so, of course, it's worth trying to figure it out on your own. But if you're still stuck, then you use the explanations, or that's when tutoring or coaching can come in.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
My pleasure, Kathleen. Of course, reach out if you need anything moving forward. I'm here for you.
I absolutely will. I anticipate that once I get through a bit of it, we'll do some tutoring sessions.
Perfect. All right. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks for tuning into the show. Please subscribe if you haven't done so already to be notified of new episodes as I release them. And feel free to reach out if you need anything at all as you move forward with your prep. I'm happy to help however I can. In the meantime, I'll wish you all the best and take care.